All right, breaking news development coming in this time from London, where two more ministers seems to have resigned from the Boris Johnson cabinet, adding to the difficulties of the British Prime Minister. Yesterday, we had two of his top ministers, Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak and Health Minister Sajid Javid, resigning, and now two more ministers identified as John Glenn and Felicity Bouchard. Both have resigned with a letter written to the Prime Minister and a copy to the Chief Whip. And they say that in conservative values and want to ensure that we are implementing conservative policies without distractions. They say it is with great sadness that I tender my resignation as a parliamentary private secretary in the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. That's the letter written by Felicity Bouchard. And then John Glenn, writing to the Prime Minister, saying that after much thought and with deep regret, I must inform you that I have made the difficult decision to resign from the government. It has been great privilege, but when we met earlier this year, you asked me to commit to carry on working to deliver vital reforms. And these reforms are now ready to be presented. What is important is that the leadership of Boris Johnson is facing headwinds, with a veritable revolt panning out, with two ministers resigning yesterday, and that was Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Finance Minister effectively of the United Kingdom, and Sajid Javid, the Health Minister of the UK. Boris Johnson, of course, quickly replacing the two, but would he be able to stem the tide that has just begun now, with Felicity Bouchard and John Glenn resigning from Boris Johnson's cabinet on similar grounds, and that's that they are not very happy with the leadership of Boris Johnson, who has been facing investigation, who has been facing political headwinds because of his style of leadership, because of the charges that a party was held during COVID quarantine, breaking rules, and the people at large are sensitive to their leaders being seen as breaking rules that they want everyone else to follow. And so rebellion really panning out against Boris Johnson's leadership in the United Kingdom, with two more ministers resigning today, and there is likelihood of others. Reports suggest that there is almost a rebellion that's spawning against the leadership of Boris Johnson in the light of investigations that have been going on. In fact, there was a fine that was put on Boris Johnson, subsequent to which there was a case of having lied in parliamentary proceedings against the British Prime Minister. And now we are seeing two more ministers resigning. Boris Johnson was in India just last month in a very high-octane, optics-loaded visit, in which he also rode a bulldozer in Gujarat. But what is important is that back home, the opponents within his party are not liking his style of leadership. I think we have Natasha from the digital desk in our Mumbai newsroom with the two resignation letters. Natasha, if you can give us the details of why the two ministers have quit following Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid.
That's right, Abhishek. Now, major back-to-back resignations for the UK government. They're major embarrassment for Boris Johnson. Now, all these ministers, from yesterday we saw Rishi Sunak resigning as the finance minister, topmost minister in the Boris Johnson government. Now, they're also putting out resignation letters citing direct attacks on Boris Johnson's leadership. We have two more ministers now resigning again, yet again citing scandals, saying responsible government ought to be responsible, but there was a Partygate scandal, and then there was also sexual harassment allegations on the government, where ministers are now saying that the action taken was not really convenient to their leadership. So they're directly attacking here Boris Johnson and his leadership in all these open letters that have come. Now, total of 4 ministers have resigned so far. Boris Johnson still maintains that he will remain the Prime Minister. No statement has come about these resignations that have now hit the Boris Johnson government. Abhishek.
Natasha, also, are you getting reports, since you take care of the digital desk, that there might be more resignations and that could really put Boris government in jeopardy in London?
Abhishek, now yesterday we saw these two top ministers resign and now two more have followed. But sources also say that more resignations maybe are expected. Meanwhile, on the internet, a lot of talk, a lot of support for these resignations that have come from the Boris Johnson government, also questioning the leadership here. So far, we can expect more resignations also to come out in a similar fashion where everyone's, putting out a letter attacking the Boris Johnson government directly. So major embarrassment here for Boris Johnson. We will also keep an eye out for any statement that comes from the UK government itself.
All right, we're keeping an eye on any statement coming in from the British government, but what is important is that the headwinds that his government is facing are refusing to die down. In fact, reports suggest, and these are attributed to London press, that more than 10 resignations were submitted to the government since Tuesday, including letters from cabinet ministers Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid, as well as 5 parliamentary private secretaries. This comes after Prime Minister Boris Johnson apologized for appointing Chris Pincher to a government role after a misconduct complaint against the MP. Johnson is scheduled to appear in front of the Lajon committee on Wednesday afternoon. Natasha, in fact, I'm going through some reports and they suggest that as many as 10 people in the Boris government, including cabinet ministers, including parliamentary secretaries, have sent in their resignation letters. That's getting huge by the day.
Absolutely, Abhishek. 10 more ministers, if you're hearing that correctly, are going to also resign. Now, 4 top ministers have already resigned. Now, these letters, Abhishek, are very interesting because they have the same language, but in different ways. They are questioning the Boris government. Here, if I can read the latest resignation letter, it says the country deserves better. And the actions and policies of the Boris Johnson government did not somewhere fit right with these ministers. Now, Rishi Sunak also yesterday in his letter questioned Boris Johnson and said that although I was contesting your decisions internally, but externally Rishi Sunak was supporting Boris Johnson's decisions, but now it's out in the open. The rift, the decisions that were taken by Boris Johnson and were not sitting right with these ministers are now totally open, out in the open, with these resignation letters coming in. And if we hear that correctly, we heard that 10 more ministers are set to resign. So that is a major, huge developing story that we are tracking here right now.
All right, Saurabh Shukla of the News Mobile joins us. Saurabh, this is Abhishek this side. It seems that all that has happened in London over the last 6 months is catching up with Boris. Clearly, a lot of headwinds against his leadership, and with reports suggesting that 10 from his government, including 6 top ministers, have resigned. How likely is Boris Johnson going to survive this crisis?
I don't think he'll be able to survive this one, Abhishek. I can tell you the challenge with Boris Johnson has been his unconventional way, the way he has carried on this government in the UK. If you recall, there was controversy earlier when he had when UK was reeling under pressure of COVID. He had a party at his residence, which earned him a lot of flack. Also, his recent moves have irked even the most staunch allies like Rishi Sunak, who also quit. So I don't think that Boris Johnson can survive this round. It's a crisis for him. Already, I've been speaking to a lot of sources in London. They say that he's also becoming increasingly unpopular because, if you recall, Boris Johnson came to the fore as the mayor of London, where he did some good things. But over the last few years, his handling, whether of the COVID situation, whether it comes to foreign affairs, also his role when it comes to the Ukraine crisis, have all earned him something which is, not only of a bad press, but also created problems for his party. And we feel that this is a challenge. Hopefully, as I'm getting to hear, there will be a likelihood of a new leader. And I think it's endgame for Boris Johnson, who's known more for his theatrics rather than his leadership style. Abhishek?
Also, Saurabh, John Glenn in his resignation letter has written that the country deserves better. Boris Johnson is a former journalist. Shouldn't he not have seen the story coming? 10 ministers and parliamentary secretaries resigning within 24 hours.
The challenge is that sometimes when you try to be too unconventional, especially when you are the head of states, a lot of head of states, head of governments across the globe try to adopt unconventional ways in the era of social media. But you also have to take your party along. You also have to take your senior leadership along when you take key decisions. Boris Johnson's challenge was that he was known to make things on a whim. That is what is coming to haunt him now, because it's a very, very important country. UK is a member of the UN Security Council. I get sometimes when you speak to UK diplomats, they tell you that his style of leadership, of governance, is something where he would rebuke even senior civil servants. This is what is all adding up. And now if you see a crisis within his own party, his own in inner circle, so to say, it is entirely his own doing for which he has to take the blame. And I think gracefully quit and pave way for a new Prime Minister in the UK.
Well, you are suggesting that he should quit, but the fact is, Saurabh, that Boris Johnson has really dug in. And we have seen how over the last few months he has really brazened it out. In fact, today, within the last 24 hours, despite the resignation in the last 24 hours, Boris Johnson is all set to appear before the Parliament in the PMQs, which is the Prime Minister's questions, which happens every week in the UK Parliament.
See, Abhishek, as I mentioned earlier, that he has a very different style. He believes he has a certain set of advisors who have come from outside the party, who is not part of the inner circle, which has also created, a big challenge for him. But at the end of the day, a Prime Minister, especially in a democracy...
Saurabh, just hold on. We have somebody from London joining us. Saurabh, just hold on. We have somebody from